Hello and welcome to this episode of Still Irish, Ireland's podcast of record. My name is Killian Foley Walsh, and all I want to do is fire a cannon. In the meantime, though, I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick Murphy, a one-time European election candidate in 2024 and the current CEO of the Irish South and West Fish Producers Organisation. I think I have that right, haven't I, Patrick?
You have, it's a mouthful, all right, but it covers both the south and the west coast of Ireland, so we have to include all our members, otherwise they might be disappointed.
Rebellion. It's a big catchment, all right, but a lot of our viewers, I think, might remember you as well as the man who went up and confronted the Russian Navy somewhere near enough to Mayo, I think, and sent them back to Murmansk, didn't you?
That's right. We had a problem with military exercises, and they were going to send ordnance into the sky just to let people know that was firing rockets and bullets up. And I always said to the Russian ambassador, what goes up must come down. So we didn't want our fishermen in the way of anything that might harm them.
Not to mention the poor fish.
Well, that's it. You see, you'd be protecting your environment as well too, and fellas toe the bottom. So there's enough ordnance out there from world wars without putting more on the bottom if they didn't explode. But not only that, we were afraid of our own government. And how we were afraid of that was that they would tell us to get in out of the way of the Russians, and we'd have to leave our fishing ground. And it takes 36 hours to steam out there. So you would lose an awful lot of money if you had to steam out and turn around and steam back in. You have to make your money when you're out there. So it's normally a 2-week expedition.
And the government told you to get out of there. They didn't tell the Russians to get out of there. They told the Irish fishers to get out of there.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I'm remembering what happened. Yeah, Eamon Ryan told us to get out of the way because we were going to be a collision hazard. And I explained to him that we fish at 4 knots. You have a net out behind you, so you tow nice and slowly to catch the fish. Whereas these boys, I'm sure, would be coming in a bit faster, around 10 or 12. Plus, we're on the highway. We are there 4 days before them. So if somebody's coming onto the highway, you'd think the person coming onto the highway would be the one that would mind themselves, not us. But not only that, then, why I'm smiling, what the government said, they did, in fairness. Our minister, Simon Coveney, just like Father Ted in the episode when they were told not to protest outside the cinema, himself and Dougal came up with a great plan, which was to write a strongly worded letter. So that's what happened. Our minister wrote a strongly worded letter, and that did the trick.
Well, these are better than a statement. All we ever seem to get from them these days on every world event that takes place is a statement of about 2 or 3 lines from the Department of Foreign Affairs. So at least you got a letter in your defence. But yeah, and like, how did you sort that issue out? So you went out, I understand you went out there, you confronted them, or
no.
I'm off. The ambassador was involved.
Yeah. So we got phone calls from the ambassador, from his attachés, and they said, look, there's nothing to worry about here. But when we gave our true concerns to them, they invited us up to the embassy, and we went in, myself and Brendan Byrne from the fish processors, and we just talked, and we negotiated genuinely their movement from Irish waters into international. And that's all we could do. So they left our waters. They still did the exercises, but not in Irish waters. We did point out there was 5 pieces of legislation under the United Nations where they would have been in breach had they continued to do so. Funny that we, not the government, found those bits of legislation, but look, these are the things that helped us to negotiate their withdrawal, we'll call it, their movement from Irish waters to do their exercises somewhere else. So we were happy with that.
Good. I'm sure all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we tried to put a moratorium on it then for all countries, but the French were in the following year, so we made a bit of ruckus about that. Then you had the lads from Virgin, what's his name? Branson, is it?
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, yeah.
With his navy.
No. They launched rockets from Irish space. They did. Yeah, I was on the news about that as well too, giving out, and they said, "Oh, there's no danger," until it did crash somewhere on the other side of the hemisphere. Yeah.
I had no idea.
It did. Yeah. See, we watch the waters outside, and lads still monitor it. So when the Russian subs and those boats are around the place, we see them first. The fishing boats see them, and I'm always saying, "Is what are you going to do?" We have 9 naval ships operational, but we can only put a crew in 1. So that's how bad our Navy is manned. And we're always pointing out that they're not even getting enough resources. So we're the eyes and ears and the water outside. And to get rid of us, I think, would be a mistake. I think, unfortunately, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that I suppose brings us to so that's your claim to fame in terms of national media, maybe, is the Russian issue, but your bread and butter, I suppose, your day to day is on representing the fishing industry and trying to improve what seems to be a pretty dire situation for ye. I say ye because I'm from Kilkenny. There's no coast down there, but Tramore is my nearest beach. But yeah, so you're in a tough spot when it comes to fishing.
Yeah, just to give a few figures that people don't understand, we have the biggest waters in Europe now. We've 880,000 square kilometers of water around our country. It's around 8 to 10 times our landmass. We have the richest waters in Europe. How do I know that? Every country in Europe wants to come here to fish. We have boats coming from China and Japan, skirting or outside our 200 miles, catching bluefin tuna. They come in and get fuel and provisions. And this is unreal, because the quota for European tuna is 25,000 tons this year. We get to share in just 70. So there's 4 other countries. Whoever catches that first gets to keep it.
So say those figures to me again.
25,000 tons for Europe's fishermen. We are Europe's fishermen, and yet out of that 25,000, we get a share of 70. It's a bycatch. We're not allowed to target it, so we have measures in to avoid it. But you have Japanese, Chinese fleets. So people don't understand we have a mine, right? Like a gold mine that's around us. And it keeps providing fish of all different types and sizes and flavors and tastes, from scampi to whiting to cod. Yet we give 85% of those fish away. And not just to those people in Europe, but to the likes of Norway, And Norway came down 2 years ago, and our fishermen, again, figures, had 60,000 tons of blue whiting to catch. So I'll repeat that figure now, 60,000 tons. Yet Norway came all the way from the Arctic, and they had 214,000 tons of the same fish in our waters. It is absolutely insane, is the word I would use, that we are in this position where we had thousands of boats in our fleet, and now we're down to 140 of the bigger boats and 900 of the smaller boats active, right? So in 2004, that's only 2 years ago, we had 400 boats in our fleet, and that was small enough that could fish into deeper waters. After decommissioning and Brexit and COVID and everything else that happened, that was forced. They say it was voluntary. I say it was forced upon us. We're down to 140. And now what we're trying to raise is, after what happened this year with the cuts in the stocks and the denial of the Hague preferences, we could lose another 40 or 50 of those boats if it came to it tomorrow. And that's no jokes. So we're annihilating our history in fishing, our maritime culture and our heritage right in front of us. We're losing that, and nobody's talking about it.
Not to mention the money.
Well, people, you have right wing and all these people that are accused of being right wing of coming out with crazy figures. Well, I'm telling you, these figures are true. So in every year we have a publication from the Marine Institute called the Stock Book, and it gives details of all the fish and the last number of years and catches of fish and the biological status of the fish, how much fish are there. Well, I'll just tell you this now. We had 8 million biometric tons of fish in our waters in the last number of years, and that's gone down to 8 million. I said, am I wrong on my figures? And you can edit it out. 8 million.
We won't.
8 million tons of fish in our waters up until recently, and that's down to 2 million now. So we've been annihilated. Now, remember what I said.
And that's down to overfishing, is it? Or
yeah, it's not down. It's down to being too generous, that other countries are catching away more than they used to catch. And to explain that, make sense of it. When the UK left the European Common Fishery Policy, they got control of their waters and the fish within them. So what happened then was, other countries that were fishing in their waters got scared, called displacement, and they came to Irish waters. And they started taking up their full allocation of what they said they had to catch over the years. And I'm going to give one example of that. Belgium, coastline of 62 kilometers, right? comes to Irish waters in between Ireland and England, and it takes 450 tons of one species alone, which is black sole. That's an expensive fish. You call it sole mariniere when you're eating in butter, right?
It's 6 times the entitlement to any fish that all of Ireland has. Am I working that out correctly? Am I making myself sound like a fool?
15 times. We have 28 ton now this year. They have 450.
Sorry, that's right. You said a share of 70, not 70.
Yeah. So
I don't mean to laugh. I'm laughing, but I'm very furious.
When you add it all up, you see, I'm saying we get 85% of all the fish are taken. So in some months we get really badly hit. In others we do okay. So in boarfish, it's a new species that was found for commercial value years ago, and we get a big share of that because it's completely in our waters at the moment. So we've a large, but that distorts the figures by tonnage of what we get. So that's not worth 50 cent a kilo, whereas a sole is 20 euros a kilo. So you can imagine the difference in value. Like, so if we have 1,000 tons at 50 cent a kilo, it's 500 a ton, so that's 500,000. If you have 1,000 ton of sole at 20, it's millions. It's 20 million. So 500,000 versus 20 million. But if you're counting it by the quantity of fish, they're the same. But if they have all the valuable fish, you can imagine the differential between the money and the power of that. So again, coming back to my point, in the stock book, it shows that there's 1.2 billion worth of fish taken in our region. We get around 200 million. Now multiply that by 50 years of the common fishery policy. So that's 50 million in raw resources. But when that resource comes ashore, it multiplies because the fish isn't sold for what the fishermen get for it. So the fishmonger trades it, he might double the price. Now that 200 million becomes 400 million. Then it goes to the restaurants and the pubs and they double that again, or into the supermarkets. So by the time a kilo of fish comes from the fisherman, it could be 4 euros a kilo to him. By the time it gets into the shop for you to buy it, it's 22. So there's multiple factors. So 50 billion worth of fish, probably 200 billion worth of losses in the 50 years to our country. It's a lot of money.
So it is a lot of money. Wouldn't 200 billion have made a difference to this country over the last
Well, it'll pay our national debt.
Handily.
Yeah. So like when people say that fishing isn't worth much, it's worth a hell of a lot. Fishermen are only the tools that go out there, like the farmer, He doesn't own the land really. He just passes it on from generation to generation, and each generation works the land. So even in those mathematical figures, they might have a 10% return annually on the stock and everything else just to stay alive. Do you know what I mean? The land could be worth millions, but you're not cashing in the land. So their income is very little. So say a fellow makes 100,000 feeding his family and all the expenses and everything else goes into it. He's only coming out with a weekly wage probably, sporadically now throughout the year. But the land could be worth millions. Fishermen are the same. They have boats that are worth millions, but they cost hundreds of thousands to maintain. Yet the fish they're allowed to catch is also in the hundreds of thousands. So they're just getting by. Do you know what I mean? And so they're not rich in the way people might think they are. And it's like this, just like the property crash. If nobody wants your boat, if nobody wants your equipment, then the value of it just plummets. And that's where we are at the moment. We can't get people to come into the industry. It's not financially viable for the boats. The fish are there, they're not allowed to catch it. If they happen to catch the fish, then they are put out of business. I have some documentation with me that I can show you in the bag later on. And you will see what I'm talking about, which is the shares of fish that we allocate to our fishermen. And this is recent. And it would shock you.
I believe it. Yeah.
One of the species that we have inside there now would be cod, for instance. So you have a boat that could be worth the millions that I'm talking about, yet all they're allowed to catch this month is 50 kilos of cod for the 30 days. 50 kilos for the entire month. Now, how do you make money out of that? So last year we had a boat that was leaving the harbour. He had 18 ton of haddock to catch that month in January. This year he has 3. So this is the devastation that's hitting the fishing industry. How they survive and why are they at it? They have no choice. They have boats that are worth millions. They have to keep them going.
And it sounds like a lot of this trouble, I'll call it, originates in the EU. And then it's sort of our government are the heavies and the henchmen and everything else. It's sort of inflicted then on Irish fishers. And it reminds me in that sense, our last episode was with an Independent Ireland TD, Ken O'Flynn. We spoke to him shortly after the big anti-Mercosur rally in Athlone a few weeks ago. And it really sounds to me like agriculture gets an awful lot of attention and press, and rightly so. Aquaculture, and that's the right word, isn't it? Aquaculture. Not getting any attention really at all.
No, and
it should be, both of them should be very high up the pecking order. As you said, there's huge amounts of money involved. There's a tremendous culture and everything else, and it's not even being lost. It's being taken, and I don't know. It's tough to see where to go.
Yeah, well, where to go is because there's legalities following everything in the European Union and treaties, and one of the pillars of the common fishery policy is actually 3 legs to a stool. And one of them is to protect the coastal communities and the people in it. The second one is to protect the stocks themselves, and the third one is to protect the oceans. Well, we always hear about when marine protected areas are needed, the oceans are destroyed and are damaged. Funny, it's only fishermen seem to be the ones that are targeted for doing that damage, just for going out and fishing. And I want to compare fishing now, like they're saying, and in the Attenborough movie, that the net is going across the bottom and it's kicking up all the dirt and fish are being flown back into the fishing net. There's nothing different to a farmer taking a plough, cutting up the grass and turning the sod over, and you see birds coming in and other mammals to eat what's been killed by the plough, that's been turned over, or worms or small animals or whatever else, or shrews or whatever's been killed by the plough, right? It's the same thing. That is what you do to produce food. That is the price you pay. You change your environment. The funny thing about fishing is that fishermen, and you can test this theory now, Killian, go to any pier in the country and ask a fisherman with your memory stick to show you where he fishes and see what he says to you. He protects where he's fishing because he keeps going back to them over and over and over again. So how are you destroying a place when you keep getting the gold out of it, that it never runs dry?
There wouldn't be any fisherman's interest to wreck where they're fishing, And I'm sure, again, little as I know about the sea, the sand falls back down when it's been kicked up, So, everything is fine again the next time they go out.
You're the first fellow now that actually came up with that without me giving the example of a snowboard.
Now you see.
And I've even spoke to marine biologists, and if they understood the way that nature works, when carbon is sequestered from the oxygen through the development of phytoplankton, right? And they rot and whatever. And eventually, just like grass, that turns into a different, I suppose, what would you call it's not structure, soil. It eventually turns to soil. But it calcifies. So it turns into something solid. It won't be like sugar. It'll become soluble again. So by disturbing it, it will settle back down. If it's heavier than water, it doesn't stay up. And it's not like there's kelp forests and everything where these fishermen go, because if they did, they'd fill up the nets full of seaweed and everything else. They have to go to ground that has been ploughed and furrowed for centuries, so that when they tow it, there's no rocks or nothing in the way. So they know exactly where they're going. They have the tracks of where they went before to catch the fish. So they're not changing the environment. They're just disturbing the top layer. And I did an experiment myself, actually, in Spain, in the Menamor. And it's a place that has all seaweed and seagrass. So when I dived down with my mask and stuff like that, and I disturbed the bottom, do you know what happened?
What?
Fish came to see what was disturbed, and they started poking into the soil then to see was there any benthic community like worms or stuff that I disturbed so they could eat. So you see, they didn't come there until I disturbed it. So we believe by disturbing it, you're actually enticing the fish into that area and you catch it. And boats go back to these areas multiple times during the year, but they catch fish that are 5 and 6 years old. So those fish couldn't originate there, because if they took them all out and you're back a month later, then a 5-year-old fish obviously didn't originate inside there within a month. So the fish move into that area. And we keep saying that if you kick fishermen out of the productive area into a less productive area to catch the same amount of fish, they have to fish twice as long and twice as hard. So if you're defining fishing as being destructive, you're now doubling the destructive nature of the fishing by forcing them out of the productive areas into less productive areas. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense, yeah.
No, it doesn't.
It's fascinating, to be honest.
It makes sense not to put them out of the area. Sorry, I might be explaining myself properly. So I have to correct you.
No, sorry. What I meant is I understand the example.
It makes sense not to put somebody out of somewhere where they're doing well in half the time than to put them somewhere where they will have to work twice as hard, twice the time, when the identification of what's happening is the time spent. If they're saying you're doing more damage by being there and you're there twice as long, you're doing twice the damage. Now that makes sense? That makes sense.
Is yes the right answer? Yes. Okay, that's good. Patrick, you're a robust defender of your industry, and with good reason, I think. But sometimes it's not just the Russians that you go up against, is it? Sometimes you have to face other Bolsheviks from Wicklow, the social democrats like Jennifer Whitmore and stuff. I think you had a run there lately with her. We actually have it here. We might play it for the audience as well. You and I can take a look at it just to refresh our memories.
The question for Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, I understand that you represent the Irish South and West Fisheries organisation. I'm just wondering, because I'm just trying to get some clarity on this. When you're on Facebook and your Facebook profile, is that a personal Facebook page, or is that a representative? Are you representing the organisation that? So, for example, the reason I'm asking, because this might seem a bit strange and out of context, the reason I'm asking is before Christmas you came onto my Facebook page and you said that I was anti-democratic and our process for selecting a presidential candidate was anti-democratic. I then went on and had a look at your page and you claim my party is anti-Irish. And I think pro-refugee was what you said. And then I had a look at the organisational page where you said, you claimed that I was lying. No, I think this is really important now because we have someone in who's representing a number of fishers in a particular area. And I'm just trying to get some understanding.
The question has been put and I'll give 30 seconds to respond. And then I suggest that it's no longer the business of this committee.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I valued your question. If you want to take this off air, Deputy, I'm
happy because you did it. It was in a public forum when you raised this with me, so I'm happy to deal with it. And I do also think it's really important that the people that you represent are aware that you're dealing with a committee member in this manner. And I really don't think you're doing them any favours, Mr. Murphy. I really don't.
Do we switch off the mic? We're just going to move on. Deputy, I gave you leeway. I gave you latitude, and you took advantage of it. So please don't do that again. Deputy McLaughlin.
I do want my 30
we're moving on. I apologise.
I've been attacked personally here, and my professional job now has been called into question by a deputy.
You can bring it up after the meeting.
Absolutely. I just want to make that point. Sorry, Deputy. I want to make this point. I have reached out to that deputy to talk about these issues. She has refused to meet us or our organisation to bring it up. Facebook was the only place to bring it up. No, unfortunately, I would say there's a point of order here.
So, just to explain that, so we were invited up by the Oireachtas Committee. It's Fisheries and Marine, and we were invited up to attend that, and it was to speak about marine protected areas. So what you don't see in that clip is that the first 10 minutes, 9 minutes anyway, of the deputy's contribution was towards the department officials, excuse me, and to the NGOs, so the Birdwatch Ireland and Safe Seas, and so we were excluded. So her only address to myself or John Lynch was that, and what it was about was just to explain my own personal opinion. I go onto Facebook. I have my own Facebook page. The Irish South and West have their own Facebook page, and the two never cross over.
All in personal capacity,
absolutely professional, but what she was referring to was a debate that I had with her on her Facebook page. It wasn't that I just went on and threw a comment. She had put up a post about the successful election of Catherine Connolly. And I felt that the process that happened that time, and I think most of the country would agree with me, where we ended up with just two candidates to run for one of the highest offices in our land, was a disgrace. And we did have other candidates that were reaching out to either the councils or to the deputies and senators to get the 20 votes that they needed to enter the election process. And the Social Democrats had been requested to give some of their votes to a candidate, a potential candidate, so they could enter the race. And I said, by not doing so, I felt that was undemocratic. She then said in her response to me online that the reason why they chose to do that was because the candidate that had been chosen was more akin to their ideology. And I said, that makes it even more undemocratic. So you wanted to narrow the field to just a candidate that met your beliefs and your right, and nobody else gets a right to come in, or no other person in the country would have a right to choose an alternative candidate because they weren't in the race, because you denied them by coming into the race. To me, that's undemocratic. No, that's my own personal view. Of course, if somebody can explain to me how it isn't, I'm all ears. That was one point.
Not that person.
Not that person. So the other point then that she raised was, and if you listen to it carefully, she admitted to trolling my page. Now, her comment, her thing came up as on my news feed. So Social Democrats popped up. I have been trying to reach out to Deputy Whitmore and Holly Kearns, who lives in our constituency, the leader of the party, to come and talk to us. They have not. They have come on Oireachtas committee, and I feel telling different to what actually happened in the Oireachtas committee when we discussed 6 mile ban, which meant that larger boats were kicked out of their traditional fishing grounds and left smaller boats inside. That's all. There was no other difference. The bigger boats and the smaller boats were targeting the same type of fish with the same type of fishing gear. Only one was slightly bigger than the other, right? And what that meant then was that you'd have to do a proper scientific surveys and studies to decide how much fish could be safely taken to make sure it's sustainable. We were the only organization of any organization in the country that put forward a management plan for that fishery, increasing mesh sizes, days at sea, areas, amount that you could take out. We had, I think, 6 or 7 different measures that we wanted implemented to make sure that the fishery was sustainable. They wouldn't talk to us. Yet they used incorrect data, and speaking on it, that was just not true. One of them was that the fish go into the bays to spawn. They do not. They go in to eat. And what they eat inside the bays, because they have small mouths, is the larvae of other fish. So that doesn't help the environment inside. It's the opposite. When they come out, of course, yes, seals and dolphins and everything else can eat them when they're outside the bays. But they spawn outside the bays. They don't spawn inside the bays. They'd be eating their own larvae. They'd be cannibals. So we were trying to explain that. And another one is this. Those big boats that they say is destroying the stocks and sweeping the bays, the fishery is from October to December, 3 months. They don't fish every day because the fish aren't there. So they go into the bays. If the fish are in there, they shoot their nets and they catch them. So in Kinmare Bay in 2024, according to one of the marine biologists that I spoke to on behalf of Safer Seas, said that the boats came in 10 times, they shot 5 times or 6. So they're trying to say then, and Deputy Whitmore the same, that these boats in 6 days is cleaning every fish out of the bay, and for the other 359 days of the year, there's no fish there because they've been fished out. Now that is, I would say, stupid. And the reason why I wanted to talk to Deputy Whitmore was to put that to her, because she's claiming to be a marine biologist. She did work within the Marine Institute. I know that. I don't know what her role was inside there. I never came across Deputy Whitmore before in my time fishing or in my representative. But we're trying to meet these people. We want to try and put a scenario in place that fishermen can continue to fish.
And which is why you went into this committee.
In that committee.
Talk about these issues. Instead, you were asked, why you would challenge her on social media relations to presidential election. That's what you decided to use this committee's time to talk about to you.
Yeah, I think it was more sinister than that, to be honest with you, Killian. If you look at it, she actually said that does my organisation know what I'm doing, and it wouldn't be good for them, or they wouldn't be thinking it was too positive. She made some remark like that. Now I spoke to my directors and people at home. Do many favors. Yes. You got it. Yeah. So what did she mean by that? My bosses, the people that hire me, took it that she wanted them to fire me. That's exactly what they said to me. And they were so repulsed that a deputy, a TD who was elected by the people, could use that inside in the meeting because of my own personal opinion to get me fired was beyond the pale.
I hope you got a raise.
Well, I didn't get a raise now because there's no fish there, so it's very hard to ask fishermen to give them.
Yeah, exactly. They're all social democrats.
Yes. So, but what she did in that, to me, I think breached procedures just like, and that the chairman said she was out of order. I think it was further than that, and I tried to say that at the end of it. And I did say that we were trying to reach out to the deputy in the only manner that we seemed to be getting a response, which was on social media, because we've written to them, we've emailed them, we've even rang their office several times as an organisation, and their leader, who is in our constituency, who is around 40 miles from our office door. I'm living 20 miles from her, where I come from in Hare Island, an island. She's just around the sea bend, is basically where she is. And yet I've net to speak with that leader of a party on fishing industries. And you take me for granted. What I'm saying to you is true, how bad a state we are in. And one of the biggest industries that we had in her constituency was fishing. Union Hall, Baltimore, Skull, and Castletown Bear are in her electoral area. We have people coming from Brussels, from Europe, to meet with us, to talk to us about the fishing industry, including the commissioner, the European commissioner. Yet Holly Kearns or anybody in our party won't sit down to talk to us, but they'll try and get me sacked in because what I say about their party, they don't want to hear. Now, when you're trying to stop somebody fishing, the way I would describe that is you're anti-fisherman, right? So that means they're anti-fishing. The comment that she referred to when she trolled through my site was she put up, she being Deputy Whitmore, a clip of how she had met the commissioner, not the fishing commissioner, but the fishery, the environmental. So not, I don't know, nobody to do with marine or fisheries, but she met another commissioner. And look, she's a TD, she's entitled to meet these people. But she came out and she said, I stressed to the commissioner the importance of protecting our waterways and our oceans, right? Now, that means, in my view, in my opinion, she didn't support the farmers in getting the derogation, which allowed them to continue to farm. So on those two instances, I would feel safe to say Deputy Whitmore is not pro-farming and pro-fishing. So there's the opposite, which means she's anti-farming and anti-fishing. I would love to debate this with the deputy. I would love and relish the chance, because I don't understand her remarks to me when she says I was wrong in making that deliberation and that opinion. The last one is I did say that they were pro-refugees. Yeah, well, I've had this conversation with them on other occasions. When I see people coming into our country with no documentation, no identification, I don't see why they should be put into hotels and looked after, because I don't know who they are. They could be criminals, they could be dangerous coming in, they could be running from the law in their own countries. They mightn't have the right to be here. But then when you see people in homeless figures that are waiting up as long as 20 years to get into housing, I don't know, is there any refugee in this country that's waiting for a house for 20 years, do you?
Not off the top of my head, no.
So when you
I doubt it, though.
So when you give accommodation and preferential treatment to refugees for whatever reason, and don't give it to the person that's waiting 20 years, who has the same urgent needs as somebody like that or somebody on the streets, then I'd say you're pro-refugee. You're not pro the indigenous people of your country that has the same wants and needs as the people coming into the country.
But you mentioned that the system isn't really fair, Pat, and most people, I think, agree with you. The Soc Dems have yet to come onto that line of thinking, but even the particularly big parties, they seem to be coming that way a little bit. But how would you make the system fair, I suppose? What would you have in mind?
Yeah, well, it has to be fair, like, so you can do it on a time basis. So, like, whoever's waiting the longest is first on the list. So if a refugee comes in and they're in direct provision or they're in rented accommodation, then they move the same as the homeless person moves, who's waiting the longest. That's a very simple thing. Like, when I was running, all I said was we needed to press the pause button. We needed to get a grip. You couldn't be putting people in tents, just to make sure that people know I am not racist and I am not anti-refugee, right? We are not, well, pro-migrant. A refugee as well too, as long as they come in with their documentation and they are, and can prove that they are in danger of their lives. Not coming from England or from France going, you know, there's a better deal in Ireland. Yeah. So this all has to be ironed out. So we, in our industry, looked for an atypical scheme for migrant workers from all over the world to come into our industry. And we fought very hard to make sure we got the right rights for these lads that are coming into the boats, you know, to make sure that they're coming all the way from their countries. I even had rows with the Department of Immigration and the Foreign Affairs, because we have lads that went through that system and were waiting, imagine, just to get their visa stamped in the country where they were living to come to Ireland. So their contract was written, signed, sealed, everything done, and yet they couldn't get a visa from the embassy in their country, from Ireland, to come to the country to take up their jobs for 6 months. So 6 months they were lawfully entitled to come to Ireland to take up a lawful position and work. And because nobody had stamped their visa, they wouldn't be into the country. So I'm not anti-migration, not at all. But we do have to be fair to the people in this country who are homeless. And some of them are also migrants and people coming into the country. But there's no fairness. You'll never hear that. So until you are, I believe, if you don't do that, you're pro-refugee and you're anti the people that are waiting who happen to be Irish. So pro-refugee, I think that's a fair assessment. Now, when I raised this issue before, in my own personal opinion, not through the Irish South and West, it's very clear to me that the Social Democrats don't agree that massive immigration or migration into the country, even people coming home, has an effect on the housing. This is madness. Of course it does. If you have 20,000 houses and 20,000 people come into the country, no matter where they come from, and there's no houses there already, then there's too many coming in. Simple as that. So you have to press the pause button. So we have to do it fairly and get our house in order, pardon the pun, to make sure that you are able to take these people in. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see why somebody should be brought into the country. Imagine if somebody died inside in a tent from those countries. Can you imagine?
Don't have to imagine.
Yeah,
I'm almost certain it's happened in the news. Not recently, but...
so like, you're not looking after, so you're failing in your duties anyway. So like, you just have to say we're full. And I certainly don't agree with somebody coming from a safe country under the Dublin Convention that was there. I don't know why they set aside that law. You come off a plane into Belfast and come down into Ireland. There's no direct flights from these countries that they're claiming they're coming from. So obviously they didn't come from there. Back into the airport, back onto the plane of where they originated from. That's it. And no more about deporting. That's it. Just turn them on the next flight. You don't even entertain it.
Well, even these deportation flights that we've seen lately, the cost of them is eye-watering. You put 30 people on a plane, it costs up to €500,000 or something, and that's 30 people. It's not even a full plane.
Yeah, well, you see that with the housing as well too. There's temporary accommodation, 450,000 for a glorified caravan in a field. People, the amount of numbers that are going to the villages. There's a big debate on it, but I don't think the Social Democrats Party is being true to the Irish people by the way that they're calling anybody that raises a concern of this is dog whistling. I think that's a huge insult. And maybe Deputy Whitmore can see up. She'd definitely see. On my opinion, I've made that many, many times on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, look, certainly I'm Still Irish. I think we're going to keep doing our best to advocate for common sense approaches to all these issues we've been talking about. On that note, Patrick, I think we might tie things up there for now. Thank you very much for coming on. It was a fantastic conversation. And something to say.
Just in case that people don't hear this or haven't heard it, my opinion is my opinion. It has nothing to do with the Irish South and West. And I do take huge offence that a deputy who is elected by the people would use their position under Dáil privilege to try and get me sacked. And this tonight is my opinion. Yes, I spoke about a lot of subjects and the fishing industry, but I'm here representing Patrick Murphy. I'm not here representing Patrick Murphy, the CEO of the Irish South and West. That is my position, my title. But tonight, I'm speaking with the lads here, and it's my own opinion that I'm giving so that there's no confusion in that. Is that okay, Killian?
Absolutely. Our first disclaimer. We finally made it, Patrick, Well, look, as usual, thank you very much to all of you for tuning in and watching this episode. As usual, we really appreciate all the support, the comments, the likes, the shares, everything else. We do want to have a kind of a plurality of guests on these shows going forward, I suppose, but it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to get people on. I want a row, basically. So if you've got ideas as to maybe who you'd like to see come on, if you'd like to come on yourself, if you think you can put it up to me, then please get in touch with us. Our email address is stillirishpodcast@gmail.com, or just drop a comment on any of our social media, and we'll be in touch then. As usual as well, please follow us on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, like, share, all the rest of it, if you want to see more of this sort of content from us. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.